Dude, let me ask you this. How do you deal with, where is it? How do you deal with clients who have unrealistic expectations about what can be done with an instrument? I know you've talked about some situations on your channel, right? If you could talk about that.
First of all, it's important to do that big briefing, right? The guy comes in, for example, with an entry-level instrument, right, and wants to do something crazy, right, something very, I already say, okay, it's going to cost this much. You'll need such and such parts. You'll need such and such resources. It comes to this amount. So there you go. It came to 5,000 reais to do what you want. But let's look at your guitar structure. Then I put the ruler there. I say, man, the neck is a little twisted. You know, the neck is a bit twisted. Suddenly there's a defect in the bridge pivot that's already starting to crack. I do a structural x-ray. So the first thing, I evaluate the guitar structurally, how it is, regardless of the brand, whether it's a premium guitar or a basic guitar. I evaluate the structure. Hey, the structure is good, man. Good news for you. Your Tajima has a perfect structure. Your Tajima has a perfect neck. So what do you want to do? Add EMG, wear a brace, add Goto. Let's do it. It's going to cost this much. Your Tajima deserves it for you. Got it. So like you love it. Your mom gave it to you when you were a teenager? Got it. So is it worth it for you to put that money into it? Is it worth it? Okay, great. Let's go for it. The guitar will be like this and that. Now let's consider the other scenario, which is the worst case scenario, right? Where the structure isn't good. Man, your guitar doesn't have a good structure. Has it happened before? Yes. It has happened before where the guitar didn't have a nice structure and the guy wants to make a big upgrade. And then it gets into that situation, right? If money and the beating don't solve your problem, it wasn't enough. It's because it still wasn't enough, you know? So, Carol, your guitar won't turn out well. Like, it won't have the playability of this one here. Then I take a guitar that's really top notch, hand it to him and say, see, this setup, this adjustment, it's because the guitar structure is good. Yours, yeah, it won't be like this. Understand. But then I align it there. I say, Carol, it stays there, see? 70% or it became 80%. And sometimes that 80% isn't worth the investment he's going to put in, right? Sometimes it's not worth it. Sometimes it's better for the guy to go and buy a new guitar and put all the investment into that new guitar. Or not necessarily new, right? I'm saying new, just to generalize, but sometimes you get a used one in good condition. In fact, I recommend buying used instruments if they're well preserved, right, man? Yes, man, for example, you take the guy who has access to go to the workshop. There are plenty of clients who go to buy an instrument. You're selling an instrument to him. He calls you to go to my workshop. And when I get there, I look at the instrument. You know, I've had instances where I see the instrument, notice a problem and say, man, look here. There's a broken piece. The guitar owner gets upset, right? It exposed my trickery, or the guy really didn't know. There have been times when I realized the seller didn't know about the defect because it's a hidden flaw, right? So I've ended up ruining some sales. And it's not good for me when I ruin a sale because, like, first, I make the seller upset. And second, that client who was in my workshop with that instrument intending to buy it was going to leave that instrument there for customization or even basic maintenance, right? And by basic maintenance, I mean a complete setup, which isn't that basic, right? So I also lose out when I ruin a sale, but I actually like it when the guy does this, takes the instrument, brings it over, we check it out, it's cool. It aligns expectations, right? Like you said. So the guy doesn't get frustrated, doesn't end up buying an instrument because he thought it was good. And sometimes it has a hidden flaw. What is a hidden flaw? A locked truss rod, a twisted neck, you know, a Les Paul like with the wrong neck, angle, which you can't fix.
It happens.
There are Les Pauls where if the angle isn't right, you can't get a low action on the strings at all.
You might get a low action, for example, on the higher frets because the angle is incorrect. And on the lower frets, everything is messed up, or you might get it low and then it ends up high at the end.
It's not, but it's more common to have it high from the 15th fret onwards because the neck is like this and not like that, right? So it's more common to find it, right?
Anyway, these are hidden flaws that only by having a professional look at it can you really see if it's okay, right?
Either a professional or someone who's been playing for ages and already knows, right? Anyway. So, man, if you're buying a used instrument, honestly, I recommend the following. If you don't know anything about guitars, buy a new instrument because the store will back you up for anything.
Yes, there's the warranty.
Well, if you already know about guitars, if you've been playing for a year or so, you already know, right? Play guitar for a year, then buy a used one. You'll be saving money.
You already have the know-how to see what's good or not.
Yeah, what's good, what's not. Also follow our channel. There's a lot of information.
That's cool. I was going to ask you the following.
And by us, I mean this one and mine.
I don't know if you get this kind of demand over there. For example, you mentioned before that, for instance, there's a client who will message you saying, hey man, I'm looking to buy such and such. And you say, no, call me when you have everything in hand. But does it happen, for example, that a client comes to you and you kind of do a consultancy with him like, hey, you like playing rock. This pickup you're thinking of buying for the sound you're going for won't be great. I'll recommend these brands and these models to you. Do you provide this kind of service to some clients?
If I notice that the guy is open to suggestions, right? If I see that the guy is open to suggestions, I have a chat with him. A very common thing too, sometimes the guy is just starting with the guitar and goes to buy, for example, he really likes Metallica, enters the store and buys a Strat with 3 single coils. Is the Strat versatile? It is, but with a humbucker in the bridge, it's much more so. So this kind of thing is quite normal, yes. If I see that the guy is open to a suggestion, right? Man, look, for example, with the EMG 8085 pickup, you don't need to shield the guitar. True, you understand. You need to ground it, even though the EMG manual is wrong because the EMG manual says not to ground the circuit, but you have to ground it. But you have to ground it so much so that if you take a factory original guitar with EMG, it comes grounded. You have to ground it because of static electricity. Oh, right. You're there generating static on the string. If the string isn't grounded, the static stays there. This after 2 hours of playing. And am I wrong, brother? No, it's right. You understand. So there are things that even the AMG manual is wrong about, but you don't actually need to shield it. You really don't. But there are clients who say, brother, I want it shielded. Then I say, well, but it's not necessary. I want it shielded. So I went and shielded it. It made a difference. The guy playing said, man, it got better. It became quieter. I was wrong. You understand. But if I go on my channel and say, well, shield your guitar with EMG, man, people will throw stones at me. No, because it's not necessary to shield a key. So there are things that are better left as they are.
No, cool. But for example, do you think that maybe the difference the guy mentioned was noticeable?
For him, it was. For me, because he's used to it at his house with his amp and his cable.
Okay.
You understand, like on my amp, I didn't test the guitar beforehand either, but I know the AMG sound very well, Anyway, it's the same sound on any guitar. Man, it was a little bit like that. I thought it was a little bit, but like it's so little that I don't know if I'm just shooting myself in the foot coming from work. I don't know if the investment is worth it.
No, I'm asking you this because it's very common. And we've talked about this in some episodes about people who listen with their eyes.
Wow.
Got it? Listen with their eyes. So for example, the guy...
Wow, totally, man.
The guy is going to pick up a guitar that's super expensive. I don't know, a Tom Henderson, a Sun, or a custom. And just by seeing that it's a PRS, a Tom Henderson, a Sun, anything like that, when he plays it, he's already playing with different ears. He's already predisposed to. It's impossible for a guitar that costs as much as a car to sound bad. Spoiler, it's not impossible, it's quite possible.
Really? Oh, Tim. Okay, okay, got it.
It's quite possible for a guy to pick up an expensive guitar that won't sound good. And when I say sound good, I mean for him, you know, because sometimes the guy is like, no man, a PRS is great and of course it's going to have a wonderful sound.
Yeah, but it won't.
But like for what you're going to play, for your style, your taste, is it what you need? Totally.
Understand.
And sometimes the guy, oh, yeah, he's like, no, man, it made a huge difference because for him, he was already like, no, man, I know the shielding is for this. So when you put the shielding, man, it's going to be 100%. Could it be that sometimes it's a bit about hearing with your eyes?
I don't know, man. Because I had a slight impression that there's a small difference too. Knowing the EMG as I do on my amp, I never change the parameters of my amp. It's all flat. It's flat for this. For me to have, because you take it out here, put it there. With each guitar you arrive, you change it. Anyway, I leave it flat there and that's it. And if someone comes and changes it, I go back later and leave it flat again. In my experience, it changed little, but it changed so little that what he invested might not have been justified, but he noticed an absurd difference. I understand, and then I was in a conflict with him because I say, well, EMG says not to shield, but also the same EMG says there's no need to ground the bridge. The same EMG. So, should I trust EMG? Do you understand? Should I trust EMG? It's a matter of free rate. EMG wants to sell the thing as the best deal on planet Earth. Do you understand? So they're going to tell you, hey man, don't shield, don't ground, don't do anything here, it'll be fine.
And everything's fine. People also say not to mix active and passive pickups, but I had a guitar where I mixed active with passive, and it turned out great. And people were like, how did you do that?
I said, talk to Kleber because he was the one who did the installation for me. You just don't power the passive pickup, You'll probably need a different potentiometer for each one's volume.
It's because the active one also has a potential of 25K,
So that's it. But you can do it and it turns out well. It stays quiet. It stays dynamic, It all works out.